The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 781. Maxine, Finn Ludwig cried out in despair. Maxine Daines lost consciousness. Quick, call Lindsay and have Kiran come help. Yvonne Quinn placed her goo poison on Maxine's body to help sustain her life. Let's take her to the hospital, Finn suggested. If we leave now, we might get killed too, Yvonne calmly responded. Contact Lindsay to get Kiran here and have her announce her mother's assassination to the public. There might still be a chance. Finn steadied himself, trembling, and pulled out his phone to call Lindsay. On the other end, Lindsay was still reeling from the shocking news Kiran had announced, unable to adapt to it. Seeing her father's call, she thought he was going to confront her and quickly answered, "Dad!" "Lindsay, quickly get Kiran to save your mom," Finn cried. "What's wrong with my mom?" Lindsay's tears flowed, and she almost collapsed. She was shot in the back. Her condition is critical. "Where are you?" Lindsay anxiously asked. "At home. We don't dare go to the hospital. Yvonne is trying to save her. I'll find Kiran now." Lindsay hung up and ran out. Kiran was right outside her bedroom. "Kiran, my mom has been shot and is gravely injured." "Boo-hoo." Lindsay broke into tears. Kiran wasn't shocked. In fact, his mouth curled into a smile as he thought to himself, "This game is going to get chaotic good." He turned to Lindsay and said, "Let's go save her now. Let's go." Lindsay moved, grabbed Kiran's hand to go. "Check when the earliest flight to Dragon City is," Kiran said calmly. Lindsay checked and quickly said, "In 3 hours." "What about the nearest city to Dragon City?" Kiran reminded her. "To Tangville, there's one in an hour." "Let's book that flight," Kiran decided. Lindsay nodded and quickly arranged for the tickets, while she and Kiran headed to the airport. On the way, Kiran called Lilian Yanes. "Are you asking me to protect Snow Xander again?" Lilian answered, sounding annoyed. "You know?" Kiran asked with a smile. "Of course I know," Lilian said, irritated. "This might be a diversion to lure me away," Kiran said. "You're not stupid. I'm counting on you for Bayville. I suspect this place is crucial. What about Dragon City?" "I haven't decided. I'll play it by ear." "Stay safe," Lilian hung up. Kiran then called Snow, warned her to be safe, and told her Lilian would protect her. Snow, worried for Kiran, gave repeated reminders. Kiran reassured her. Lindsay lay sobbing in Kiran's arms. "Stop crying. Announce this to the public and let everyone go crazy for a bit," Kiran comforted her. Lindsay collected herself, nodded firmly, and quickly called someone, announcing her mother's ambush and severe injury. She also firmly stated that even if all the Ludwigs died, they wouldn't yield to those behind this and would ensure the money stayed with the country. Lindsay's announcement caused an uproar, and countless people expressed concern and praised the Ludwigs. Finn was too busy to pay attention. He was hiding in the villa with Yvonne and tending to Maxine, waiting for Kiran to arrive. Yvonne's goo poison had stopped the bleeding, but the injury couldn't be alleviated and needed urgent attention. Outside the Ludwig villa, an old man with sharp eyes kept watch on the villa, showing annoyance and frustration. The old man, Lloyd Moe, was one of the Ludwig's butlers in charge of security. However, he acted as if he knew nothing regarding Maxine's shooting. Finn hadn't mentioned it, so Lloyd Moe didn't bother to ask or pay attention. The other members of the Ludwig family were going about their business. Seeing Lindsay's announcement, none came to inquire or express concern. Inside the villa, Finn felt as if he were under house arrest. Only Yvonne remained calm. Seeing through the situation, she realized Finn was a puppet, and everyone in the villa was under the control of external forces. In the past, no one noticed. At that moment, Kanta Yasuda and 4 others were in a video conference. Apart from Kanta, the others were facing away from him, each hidden by high-backed chairs. "How do we recover that money?" Kanta asked angrily. "What's the point in asking us?" One replied in a country's star-spangled language. "Davis, isn't that your money?" Kanta retorted. "It's our money, but now the Dragon's Land government has announced they're liquidating assets." "What can we do?" Davis shot back. Kanta was enraged but didn't respond. "Everyone, stop arguing. The key now is to kill Kiran. If he dies, everything will be settled," someone else said. "Kill Kiran?" Kanta scoffed. He knew how hard that was. "Are you willing to help?" "Kanta, don't get so worked up. True experts don't behave like you." "Elton, stop being sarcastic. You romantics are only good at enjoying life." "What else?" "Kanta, your ninjas in Sunland have been proven ineffective. What else do you have?" "Shut up, Park Sungnam. You have no right to speak," Kanta sneered at the man from Hammerland. "Kanta, your Sunlanders are useless. What else can you do but assassinate?" "Quiet. I think you're all useless. None of you can kill Kiran, yet you're talking nonsense." The last person spoke. "Agani, why don't you Indians take action?" Kanta taunted. Agani didn't get angry. How about we draw straws to decide? Draw straws? Everyone questioned. Yes. Whoever takes action, the other four contribute 10 billion each, Agani suggested. I'm in, Park Sung-nam said. Agreed, Davis added. Let's draw straws, Elton said confidently. We Sunlanders will pay, Kanta conceded, knowing his best fighter Kanpei Ichiro was in seclusion and unable to kill Kiran. Coward, Park Sung-nam sneered. Let's see if you Hammerlanders can kill Kiran. Draw straws. Davis pressed a button on his chair, and soon a name appeared on the screen. Park Sung-nam. I'll try, Elton said, pressing, and it also showed Park Sung-nam. I vote for Park Sung-nam, Kanta said gleefully. The result isn't certain, Park Sung-nam snorted, pressing his button, and it showed himself. The room fell silent, followed by Kanta's mocking laughter. Park Sung-nam, it's up to you. Don't worry. Park Sung-nam remained calm. I'll kill Kiran. Park Sung-nam exited the meeting screen and began making calls. Lloyd Moe at the Ludwig family was on a call. Chapter 782. Master, Lloyd Moe greeted politely. Now arrange to kill Kiran, Park Sung-nam's cold voice commanded. Are we taking action? Lloyd's eyes were sharp. Yes, Park Sung-nam sneered. Kanta Yasuda and the rest of the Sunland scum have proven useless. Now it's our turn. Useless, Lloyd cursed. Use your brains to kill Kiran, Park Sung-nam instructed. Rest assured, Master. We from Hammerland are not like those Sunland pigs. Ha ha ha. Park Sung-nam laughed mockingly. I await your news. Beep beep. The busy tone came from Lloyd's phone. He looked toward the villa, disdainful. Taking action against the Ludwig family was like shooting fish in a barrel. He pulled out his phone, making arrangements. As Park Sung-nam had emphasized over the phone, use your brains to kill Kiran. At that moment, Kiran York and Lindsay Ludwig were unaware that the enemy had already made a move. They arrived at Bayville Airport, got their tickets, and were waiting for security. Lindsay, her eyes red from crying, leaned against Kiran's mature and charming body like a little girl who had lost her backbone. She had lost her usual pride and womanly strength. On one hand, she was anxious about her mother's critical injury. On the other, she was dependent on Kiran. In her heart, Kiran was her everything. Help. The quiet waiting hall suddenly echoed with a cry for help. Swoosh! Everyone's gaze turned toward the sound. Kiran looked too. 5 meters from the security checkpoint, a woman lay on the ground, and a man holding a child was crying loudly. Quick, call a doctor. My wife has fainted. The man cradling his wife sobbed. Call a doctor quickly, someone shouted. Airport staff and security guards arrived, anxiously calling emergency personnel. Go help, Lindsay urged. Kiran frowned slightly and guided Lindsay over. Knowing Kiran was a doctor, Lindsay felt uneasy that he was hesitating to help. She broke free from Kiran's hand. Go help. Kiran didn't hurry. Instead, he focused on the child on the man's back. The man looked up, seeing Kiran, and suddenly cried out, Dr. York, please save my wife. He fell to his knees and kowtowed to Kiran. Wow! The crowd parted, looking at Kiran, recognizing him. Dr. York is here, how fortunate. Looks like your wife is saved. Dr. York, help! Seeing Kiran, the crowd seemed hopeful and spoke up. Kiran said nothing. He calmly walked over, his gaze sweeping over the woman, lingering on her face for a few seconds before shifting to the child on the man's back. The little pouch holding the child's bottom seemed off, meant for the front but now slung on the back, looking odd. Dr. York, please save my wife'll. The man, seeing Kiran unmoved, kowtowed again, pleading. Kiran remained still, looking toward the security checkpoint. He took Lindsay's hand. Let's go. Go? The crowd seemed to hear wrong. They looked at each other. Even Lindsay was doubtful, staring at Kiran with questions in her eyes. Kiran didn't explain, just guided Lindsay to walk away. The man on his knees was stunned, then angry. Kiran, do you have no medical ethics? You're letting someone die. Ah, the man cried, embracing his wife. How could you fall ill? How could we meet such a heartless doctor? Airport staff, suppressing their anger, approached. Dr. York, please help. They were polite, but their expressions showed displeasure and anger, clearly feeling Kiran was heartless. Kiran ignored them, holding Lindsay as he hurried away. Kiran, help! Lindsay, unable to bear it, shook off Kiran's hand and shouted. Kiran, you're a doctor. Healing the sick is your duty, someone shouted angrily at Kiran. Kiran didn't care, quickening his pace and pulling Lindsay. What the hell is the miracle doctor? He's just an animal without medical ethics. The man let go of his wife and scolded Kiran York. Kiran York was not angry. He continued walking calmly to the security checkpoint. Such a person with no medical ethics should not be allowed to take the plane, the man shouted angrily again. You're worse than an old rascal. Take a plane, my ass, another man scolded Kiran York angrily. Lindsay was embarrassed, pulling Kiran's hand. Help, please? The security personnel acted as if they didn't see Kiran. They ignored Kiran, not allowing him to be scanned. Kiran looked at the security staff. If you don't scan me, I'll go straight through. If you go in without a scan, it's illegal, a security officer shouted. Illegal? Kiran sneered. Yes, if you don't go through security, it's illegal, the officer said righteously. Kiran looked at the officer. You said I'd be illegal? Yes, the officer glared at Kiran. Why not say the man is illegal? Kiran pointed at the man. Everyone was stunned. The man trembled. Kiran looked at the airport police. Why not check if someone has lost a child? Lost a child? The crowd gasped, instinctively looking at the child. The man's face changed but quickly returned to normal. This is my child. Your child? Kiran turned to him and sneered. The man grew nervous. Kiran's sharp gaze fixed on the man. If it's your child, tell me if it's a boy or a girl. It's... The man stammered, unable to answer. The crowd was puzzled. Is it a boy or a girl? Lindsay sensed something wrong and asked. We have twins, a boy and a girl? I don't know which I brought, the man lied. Where's the other child? Kiran asked. It's... The man faltered again. The crowd sensed something was off. If it's your child, surely you know if it's a boy or girl. Lindsay questioned. What's your wife's name? Kiran pointed at the woman on the ground. Chapter 783. The man's expression changed again, but he didn't respond. He put the woman down and slowly stood up. You don't know, do you? Kiran sneered. You're just trying to divert attention because you don't want to save her, the man suddenly shouted, but he had already turned and was about to run away. However, he was abruptly stopped as Kiran grabbed him by the neck. Kiran, are you going to kill someone? The man exclaimed, his face turning pale. With a swift motion, Kiran's hand moved lightly, and the child the man had been carrying on his back was now separated from him, falling towards the ground. Kiran reached out and gently caught the child, patting him on the back. Wah! The child, as if catching his breath, began to cry. The man's head buzzed. He had knocked the child unconscious earlier, not expecting Kiran to notice. Thud! Holding the man by the neck, Kiran forcefully slammed him to the ground. Ah! The man screamed. Still holding the child, Kiran squatted down and patted the woman on the head twice. Ah! The woman moaned softly, slowly opening her eyes. However, upon hearing her child's cry, she quickly sat up. My baby! Without seeing Kiran clearly, she reached out to hit him in the face. Smack! Kiran blocked her hand. Ah! The woman cried out in pain. Your child is fine, Kiran handed the child to the woman. Having just regained consciousness, the woman was still disoriented, but the crowd realized what was happening. They crowded around the man, telling the woman, This human trafficker stole your child. Thanks to Dr. York, your child and you were saved. Yes, we all misunderstood Dr. York. The woman regained her senses, glaring furiously at the man. You liar! What exactly is going on here? The police approached. He just came over to greet me and asked about the security checkpoint for Tangville. I was about to tell him when I passed out, the woman said angrily. Whoosh! The crowd's gaze sharpened, turning towards the man. The man's face showed no fear. He smirked at Kiran. Kiran, you will not die well. He didn't finish his sentence, as he suddenly couldn't speak. Kiran had stuck a silver needle into his body. Thud! The man's eyes widened as he fell to the ground, immobilized. Kiran walked over and pulled a tooth from the man's lower left row. He tossed it aside, then removed the needle. Ah, the man screamed. Want to die? It won't be that easy. Kiran patted his face. Kiran, if you dare kill me, the man shouted angrily, seeming to wish for death. Kill you? I won't dirty my hands. Kiran stood up, ignoring him, and took Lindsay to the security check. The crowd watched as the flight to Tangville was about to board. Lindsay hurried after him. I'm sorry. It's okay. I was just testing the opponent's intent, and they are clearly trying to stop us from going to Dragon City. Lindsay became even more anxious. What about that man? Let the police handle it. Kiran didn't bother. Could they still try to stop us? Lindsay asked worriedly. They certainly will. If they didn't, they wouldn't be who they are. Kiran smiled. What do we do then? Lindsay asked urgently. With me here, what's there to fear? Kiran remained calm and composed. Lindsay felt secure and filled with happiness. Thank you! Kiran didn't respond. Dr. York doesn't need to go through security. I apologized for before. The security staff apologized proactively. Kiran smiled, taking Lindsay onto the plane. "Thank you, Dr. York." The woman holding her child looked at Kiran's retreating figure and shouted through tears. "Dr. York, we're sorry. We were wrong." Others shouted apologies to Kiran's back. Kiran turned and waved his hand, signaling it was okay. However, inside, he was concerned about the trip to Dragon City. He and Lindsay boarded the flight to Tangville. In a corner of the airport, someone was already calling Lloyd Moe. "Did you stop, Kiran?" Lloyd answered. No success. Kiran saw through it, and our man was caught. "Damn," Lloyd cursed. He wanted to commit suicide, but the poisoned tooth was discovered. "Find a way to silence him." Lloyd hung up, immediately dialing another number, on the way from Tangville to Dragon City. "Kill Kiran." "Yais," the other party agreed, hanging up. "Kiran, you must die." Lloyd looked towards the Ludwig villa, his gaze icy cold and filled with anger. Kiran and Lindsay were on the flight to Tangville. Throughout the journey, Kiran remained very calm. Lindsay was a bit nervous, especially when the plane hit turbulence. She instinctively thought someone had tampered with the plane. Her reaction made Kiran somewhat amused. A little irritated and coquettish, Lindsay chided Kiran. "I'm just a little woman and you're making fun of me." "Where are you, little?" Kiran teased. "Everywhere small," Lindsay said angrily. "Piffed!" Kiran laughed. Lindsay blushed. When she remembered how she had stripped to seduce Kiran and still failed, she felt somewhat discouraged. They arrived safely in Tangville, exited the airport, and saw a taxi. Kiran approached directly. "Sir, are you going to the city center?" the taxi driver asked with a smile. Kiran's gaze swept over the corner of the taxi driver's mouth, suddenly noticing a tooth similar to the one in the child-stealing man. It was a poisoned tooth. He chuckled inwardly, seeing that the opposition was set on obstructing or even killing him. "Sure. Take me to Dragon City and I'll give you 10,000, Kiran said generously. "Wow. That's great." The man pretended to be thrilled, turning to other drivers. "I hit the jackpot today, 10,000 for a trip to Dragon City." The other drivers looked envious, but no one spoke. Kiran was even more certain that this was a fake driver. Otherwise, the others wouldn't be so unfamiliar. He became more interested in this man. The driver got into the car, and Kiran and Lindsay sat in the back. "Please fasten your seatbelt, sir, we're going." Kiran nodded, fastening Lindsay's seatbelt but not his own. The driver wanted to say something but held back. Kiran's face was calm and composed. Lindsay, anxious about her mother's illness, was too distracted to notice these details. The car left the airport and soon headed toward the highway. Kiran looked out the window, his peripheral vision on the man. The man seemed natural, apparently focused on driving. Kiran inwardly smirked. "Let's see how long you can keep this up." Chapter 784. Dozens of kilometers later, the taxi had reached the highway and was cruising on it. Kiran noticed that the driver had remained silent, which felt odd. He suddenly remembered the man who had tried to commit suicide and was unwilling to speak. Could it be? Kiran's thoughts raced, and he soon realized what was happening. The car was rigged with a bomb. Thinking back to the driver's insistence on wearing seatbelts, Kiran realized it wasn't a precaution but meant to make escape more difficult. He realized how thorough and ruthless the setup was. "Driver, can we stop somewhere? I need to urinate," Kiran asked. The driver glanced at Kiran. "Sir, it's dangerous to stop on the highway. I can't just wet myself." Kiran retorted with a laugh. "How about you use a bottle?" the driver suggested, passing a water bottle to Kiran. "There's a lady here," Kiran replied, gesturing towards Lindsay. "She's your woman. Why are you embarrassed?" The driver laughed lewdly, glancing greedily at Lindsay. "She's just a friend, not my wife," Kiran clarified. "Just go ahead, I'll close my eyes," Lindsay said, slightly irritated by Kiran's distancing himself, her tone sulky. "Even if you close your eyes, I'll still feel nervous." "Really, I can't do it," Kiran protested, feigning an inability to urinate. Lindsay was left speechless by his antics. The driver seemed troubled. "Sir, it's not possible. Maybe you can hold it? Driver, could you slow down a bit so I can try?" Kiran suggested. "All right." The driver relented, beginning to slow the vehicle. However, Kiran didn't proceed to unbuckle his belt. Instead, he helped Lindsay undo her seatbelt. "What are you doing?" Lindsay asked, her anxiety peaking when she was unfastened in a speeding car. "I need to urinate and I'm afraid I won't be able to hold steady." "Can you help me?" Kiran said earnestly. "You." Lindsay was about to explode with anger. He just said he was too shy and was now asking for her help. "Are you holding the bottle or holding it?" The driver asked with a sleazy grin. "Shut up!" Lindsay snapped at him. "Of course she's helping to steady me," Kiran said. He maneuvered Lindsay onto his lap as he shifted toward the car door. In the next second, Lindsay saw herself and Kiran flying out of the car, suspended midair. The driver continued to drive, but the car door was open. Lindsay was stunned. Kiran held her waist with one hand, and with the other he threw the water bottle, which hit the car door with a thud, slamming it shut. Ah! Lindsay came to her senses, clutching Kiran's neck and loudly crying. Kiran held her as they landed on the ground and rolled safely. "What was that about?" Lindsay asked. "The car had explosives," Kiran pointed towards the taxi. "Explosives?" Lindsay exclaimed. Boom! The taxi exploded violently, the entire vehicle lifting into the air before crashing down. Lindsay's eyes widened in shock. If they had delayed even slightly, she would have been dead. "They are," Lindsay started. "With the people at the airport," Kiran finished her sentence calmly. Initially, he suspected the driver was the problem and had planned to deal with him and take his car. It became clear there was an explosive in the car, prompting his drastic actions. The aim of throwing the water bottle was to accelerate the explosion. They were on a highway, without other vehicles. Reaching a service area or gas station would have brought other problems. With the taxi and driver taken care of, Kiran now faced a dilemma. He looked around worriedly. How would they continue to Dragon City? "What do we do?" Lindsay asked. Kiran noticed Lindsay's miniskirt was disheveled from their abrupt exit, exposing more than intended. He teased, "Maybe you should stand by the road and wave down a ride. Maybe I attract a handsome guy to give us a lift." Lindsay realized she was exposed and hastily pulled her skirt down, but then boldly lifted it again, challenging Kiran. "Look." Kiran, shocked, quickly turned away, thinking, "This crazy woman, can't she buy underwear with more fabric?" Giggling, Lindsay called him a coward. "Enough," Kiran glared at her. "I think it's better if you do it," Lindsay said with a laugh. "Why?" Kiran asked. "You're so handsome. Standing here might just attract a beautiful woman." Lindsay teased. "Rock, paper, scissors," Kiran suggested, seeing no cars around and not in a rush. "All right." Lindsay extended her hand. "Rock, paper, scissors." She chose scissors. Kiran chose rock. Lindsay lost. "Go ahead," Kiran said with a smile. Lindsay waved her elegantly manicured fingers at him, the sunlight reflecting off her oval nails, tempting Kiran to kiss them. "Be careful, or I might just cut them off," Lindsay warned coquettishly. "If you use your mouth, that's okay," Kiran flirted back, eyes on Lindsay's red lips. "Pervert!" Lindsay was caught off guard by Kiran's bold flirtation, feeling embarrassed. Thinking of her mother, she rushed to the roadside to flag down cars. But after a while, no one stopped. Many sped up instead. A car had just exploded nearby, and people naturally became cautious. Lindsay became both anxious and disheartened. Kiran looked into the distance, also worried. "I'm tired," Lindsay said, walking away. Kiran reluctantly followed. "Let me do it. It should have been you from the start." "You have no chivalry," Lindsay retorted haughtily. Kiran ignored her. Lindsay playfully suggested, "Smile at the drivers coming. Maybe they'll stop if they see how handsome you are. Aren't you jealous?" Kiran teased back. "I'm not jealous. You might get picked up by a man, then what?" Lindsay didn't clarify, but her tone was playful. Kiran wasn't offended. As he saw a sports car approaching, he said, "I'll charm this one." Lindsay replied, "If you do, I'll." Screech! A red sports car came to a sudden halt. A beautiful woman in sunglasses looked out at Kiran and Lindsay from her car. Chapter 785. Kiran York smiled when he locked eyes with the woman. However, the woman shifted her gaze onto Lindsay Ludwig, her lips curling into a cold smirk. "Get in," Kiran said to Lindsay. Lindsay looked puzzled. "This is a sports car. It only fits 2 people. "Yes," Kiran acknowledged as he approached the driver's side. "I'll be using the car." "On what basis?" Woman retorted angrily. She was Kate Gannon, Imperial Dragon's inspector whom Kiran had an altercation with previously. "Hey, what are you?" Kate didn't finish her sentence before Kiran lifted her out of the seat, saying, "You behaved well today, so I won't hit you." Kate attempted to protest, but suddenly felt weak the moment Kiran touched her. Kiran then took the driver's seat. Lindsay was dumbfounded as she got into the car. "Kate, find your own ride!" Kiran called out as he started the car. Kate recovered her composure. "Kiran York, you bastard. This is my car, I know you brought it for me, no need to pretend otherwise," Kiran quipped as he floored the accelerator, shooting the car forward like an arrow released from a bow. "Kiran York, we're not done yet," Kate shouted at the back of Kiran's car, her car, as she raised her middle finger in a gesture of defiance. Her slender, pale finger, painted with bright red nail polish, sparkled in the sunlight full of allure. Yet, Kiran saw none of it as he sped away. Kate stomped her foot in frustration and immediately dialed her phone. As soon as the call connected, she barked, "Send a car to pick me up on the Tangville Dragon City Highway now." With a sharp click, she ended the call. "Kiran York, if I don't take you down, my name isn't Kate Gannon." She cursed under her breath. She was so angry that she was incoherent and corrected herself. "No, I mean if I don't kill you." Fuming, Kate vented her anger as she waited for her ride. In the car, Lindsay, brimming with curiosity, asked, "Who was that woman?" "Just someone I've spanked before," Kiran casually replied. Lindsay instinctively tensed up, recalling her own experiences. Eventually, she couldn't help but snort coldly, "You're a pervert who enjoys spanking women." "Would you rather I hit their faces?" Kiran retorted. I could hit somewhere else, but they might not survive the blow," Kiran pointed out with a smirk. "Excuses!" Lindsay's cheeks flushed in embarrassment. Kiran ignored her protests, focusing on driving as they raced towards Dragon City. Meanwhile, in a vehicle not far behind them, someone was reporting to Lloyd Moe. "The assassination failed. Kiran has commandeered a vehicle and is heading towards Dragon City," the caller said. "Failed?" Lloyd's voice was thick with irritation. "Yes. That damned useless trash," Lloyd cursed. Silently, the caller awaited further instructions, which Lloyd gave reluctantly. Find a chance to crash his car, create an accident, or blow it up at a gas station. "Understood," the caller replied before hanging up. As Lloyd listened to the dial tone, his gaze was icy with resolve. "Kiran York, you must die!" Unaware of the persistent threat against him, Kiran drove on, fast and focused. As Kiran sped, he quickly noticed 3 sports cars gaining on him. His first thought was that Kate Gannon had sent them. Considering the previous attempt with the taxi was meant to kill him with a bomb, it was unlikely there would be other plans in motion so quickly. A smirk crossed Kiran's lips as he stepped on the gas, the car nearly taking flight. The 3 pursuing sports cars matched his pace. Kiran found the idea appealing. Not only did he need to reach Dragon City quickly, but speeding would also mean that even if he was caught for speeding, the blame would fall on Kate's car. He floored the accelerator, the engine roaring in response. After several kilometers, a problem arose. The fuel gauge was nearing empty. "Typical Kate skimping on gas," Kiran muttered under his breath. Lindsay, trying to lighten the mood despite the high-speed chase, joked, "With gas prices these days, I'd be stingy too." Always with the witty comebacks. Kiran shot her a glance as he navigated the car expertly. "If it were me, I'd probably cut back on gas too," Lindsay continued. "Why's that?" "So I'd have more money to keep you," Lindsay teased, her eyes sparkling with humor. Kiran chuckled, but his attention was soon drawn back to the 3 cars now closing the distance. They seemed intent not only on keeping up but also on hemming him in. One moved to block him from the front, another pulled up alongside him on the left, and the third on his right. The cars driving side by side on the left suddenly raised their middle fingers at Kiran. "Hooligan!" Lindsay Ludwig cursed angrily. Kiran's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary highway race. It was an orchestrated trap. Without hesitating, he made a quick decision. He touched Lindsay's seatbelt, causing it to snap free, and then, with a swift movement, he scooped her into his arms. "What are you doing?" Lindsay asked, her voice tinged with panic. "Just trust me," Kiran replied, focusing intently on the cars flanking them. In a sudden move, he veered sharply, finding a gap between the cars to his left and behind. The drivers, caught off guard, had to brake hard to avoid a collision, giving Kiran the moment he needed. The car he had hijacked was now speeding towards an inevitable crash. Knowing they couldn't escape the situation in the car, Kiran did the only thing he could. He and Lindsay leaped from the vehicle just as the collision was about to occur. The impact was enormous. Kiran's car, now driverless, crashed into the vehicle that had tried to block him from the front, causing a catastrophic pile-up. The drivers of the other cars weren't so fortunate. They were caught in the destructive crash and killed. Landing safely at a distance from the wreckage, Kiran set Lindsay down gently. She looked at him, her expression a mix of awe and fear. "What just happened?" "That," Kiran said, nodding towards the flaming debris of the vehicles, "was a well-planned assassination attempt using us as the bait and everyone else as disposable pawns." Lindsay processed this information, her gaze hardening as she looked back at the fiery crash. "And now?" she asked. "Now," Kiran said with a determined look, "we keep moving. We're close to Dragon City, and we can't let anything stop us." Even as they prepared to continue on foot, the sound of an engine drew their attention. Turning, they saw a car speeding towards them. It was Kate, driven by anger, coming back to confront Kiran directly. Kate stepped on the accelerator and aimed her car at them. Kiran had already jumped in front of Lindsay. "Kiran, be careful!" Lindsay shouted in panic. Chapter 786. With a screech, Kate Gannon brought her car to an abrupt stop, the front bumper just touching Kiran York's legs, but it was as gentle as a kiss. "Damn you! Are you trying to die?" Kate yelled furiously. Would you really kill me? Kiran asked with confidence, his face calm. Why wouldn't I dare? Kate responded, puffing with anger. If you dared to kill me, you wouldn't be you anymore, Kiran said coolly. Why? Kate was momentarily puzzled. Because you're a woman of principles, Kiran assessed. Kate paused, slightly taken aback, and her mood lightened considerably. And you're stubborn, Kiran continued. Kiran, I'll run you over. Kate cursed angrily. Was he implying that she was stupid? However, her car door was already open, and Kiran stood beside it, lifting her out once again. Beast! Let me go! Kate panicked and thought she was about to be thrown to the ground again. This time, however, Kiran didn't throw her. Instead, he opened the back seat and tossed her into the car. Turning to Lindsay, he said, Get in, let's go. Lindsay, still in a daze as if in a dream, quickly got into the car. Was this his way of ensuring backup? He had just gotten them another car. Kiran started the car and glanced back at Kate. My safety is now in your hands. I'd be better off dead. Kate sat up from the back seat and grumbled. So you want to die with me, huh? Kiran teased. In your dreams, Kate scoffed. If you died, I'd celebrate at your grave with fireworks. If I were to be hit and killed, you'd surely die first, Kiran replied, unfazed. I want to get to Dragon City as fast as possible. Handle the tail we've picked up, Kiran said. I won't, Kate refused. Kiran didn't reply but sped up the car. Seeing that Kiran was ignoring her, Kate was internally fuming but held back her anger. As Kiran drove, he kept an eye on the rearview mirror, spotting more vehicles approaching. They're here. The rest is up to you. My life or death has nothing to do with this, Kate stubbornly said. Kiran just accelerated and ignored her. Eventually, Kate had no choice but to make a call. The call was quickly answered. Clean up the tail, Kate said before hanging up. Good performance. Next time I won't spank you, Kiran joked. You filthy rogue. Kate bit her teeth in anger. For some reason, she found herself secretly hoping Kiran would spank her. Lindsay, sitting in the passenger seat, remained silent. She suddenly realized that, aside from Kiran's ruthless and cold demeanor, he was actually quite humorous. His flirting skill was smooth indeed. Unknown to them, Snow Xander had once been driven crazy by Kiran, leading to her falling deeply in love with him. Right now, Kiran wasn't just trying to flirt. He wanted to get to Dragon City as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, in a following vehicle, someone was trying to call Lloyd Moe to report the situation. But just as the call connected and before he could speak, he felt a violent crash against his car, sending a loud boom through the air. His head slammed against the steering wheel, knocking him unconscious on the spot. His car flipped several times before coming to rest upside down on the road. Seeing this in his rearview mirror, Kiran smiled with satisfaction. Kate, your subordinates aren't bad. Hearing the praise, Kate's mood improved significantly, and she said with a proud face, Of course. Internally, she thought, You'll eventually understand how formidable I am. I'll make you kneel on my bed, whip you, and make you beg. Come work for me, Kiran suddenly said seriously. As a bed warmer? Kate blurted out. Her thoughts were interrupted by Kiran's suggestion, so she blurted it out without thinking. The car fell silent. Sitting in the front, Lindsay opened her mouth in shock, unable to speak. In the back seat, Kate felt like her worldview was being twisted. Indeed, her views on life seemed utterly distorted now. Having lived a chaste life for over 30 years and having always scoffed at men, being spanked by Kiran was humiliating enough. Today, after being carried by Kiran twice, and then suggesting herself as a bed warmer even if it was a slip of the tongue, was utterly degrading. How could she face anyone now? In her humiliation, Kate reached for the car door, intending to jump out, even if it meant death. She couldn't afford to lose any more face. You're not qualified to be a bed warmer, Kiran said as if delivering a killing blow. Shut up, Kate tried to open the car door. Kiran's hand moved, and a silver needle pinned Kate in place, rendering her unable to move in the back seat. Kiran patted Lindsay's slender leg and joked, Did you hear that? Many want to be my bed warmer. Lindsay's head buzzed, remembering the bet she lost, which involved becoming Kiran's maid. Wasn't that supposed to warm his bed? Her face flushed with embarrassment. Kiran's hand moved away, and Lindsay suddenly felt as if her energy had been drained. With that pat, it seemed as if Kiran had taken all her vitality. Kiran focused on driving. He knew Kate's outburst was unintentional, so he deliberately touched Lindsay's leg to embarrass her and give Kate an out. Seeing Lindsay also teased by Kiran somewhat alleviated Kate's embarrassment. However, the atmosphere in the car remained somewhat awkward, filled with an indescribable tension. Kiran drove on, eventually arriving in Dragon City. Seeing Dragon City, Lindsay also recovered and helped Kiran navigate to the Ludwig family villa. It was already around 4 in the afternoon when they arrived at the villa. Even after rushing, it had taken over 4 hours, the fastest they could manage. Kiran parked the car and told Kate, "Don't get out. It might blow your cover." Although Kate knew Kiran was trying to protect her, she glared angrily at him. Kiran ignored her reaction and got out of the car with Lindsay. As they approached the villa, Lloyd Moe saw Kiran arrive safely and was visibly irritated but still came forward. "The young miss is back," he announced. "How is my mother?" Lindsay asked anxiously. "What happened to the lady?" Lloyd pretended not to know. Lloyd's expression was as if nothing had happened at the Ludwig family. Lindsay was stunned. Whack! Kiran slapped Lloyd across the face. "Stop playing dumb, chapter 787. With a thud, Lloyd Moe spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, his left cheek swelling visibly fast. "Kiran, what are you doing? This is our old butler," Lindsay Ludwig said anxiously. Kiran's gaze swept across the other bodyguards, all staring back at him angrily, eyes filled with rage. Yet Kiran seemed indifferent, returning their stares coldly. "Who's the traitor?" "Stand out." "What traitor?" Lloyd asked angrily. Kiran ignored him, just watching everyone. His heart was filled with surging anger. Even though he didn't know who the traitor was, could it be that these bodyguards didn't know the family's madam had been shot? Pretending not to know, especially Lloyd's claim of ignorance, seemed even more suspicious to Kiran. Could it really be possible? He even suspected that Lloyd was the insider, hence he attacked upon meeting. "Kiran, let's save Mother first," Lindsay implored, grabbing Kiran. Kiran didn't move, but instead pulled out a black pill from his pocket. "This pill is poisonous. Those of you who think you're not traitors, come take one." Poisonous. And still they have to take it. Everyone's faces turned pale, stepping back, no one daring to come forward. Kiran raised an eyebrow slightly, looking at everyone. "You can't even protect the people of the Ludwig family, and yet you take their money. Don't you feel ashamed?" "Kiran, we don't know what you're talking about," Lloyd retorted, his face dark and grim. "The more you don't know, the more you deserve to die." Kiran took a pill and approached Lloyd. Lloyd clenched his fists, his eyes sharp as blades. Whoosh! As Kiran was about to reach him, Lloyd swung his fist at Kiran. Kiran swiftly dodged behind Lloyd and suddenly grabbed his neck. "Want to die? Just say it!" "Ah!" Lloyd screamed miserably, his body feeling like it was clamped with iron tongs. "Kiran, why are you doing this?" Lindsay couldn't understand why Kiran was attacking these bodyguards instead of helping. "Who is the spy?" Kiran shouted at Lloyd. Lloyd's face turned pale, struggling to breathe, but he firmly said, "There is no spy." "We." Thud. Kiran's leg suddenly kicked out, striking Lloyd's left leg. Crack! The crisp sound of breaking bones echoed. "Ah!" Lloyd screamed miserably, his body shaking, his left leg severely damaged. Hiss! A collective gasp rang out from the crowd, everyone staring at Kiran in shock and disbelief. No one had expected Kiran to act so ruthlessly towards Lloyd, catching everyone off guard. Kiran ignored everyone's reactions, continuing to ask coldly, "Who is the spy?" The crowd looked at each other, none speaking. "Kiran!" Yvonne Quinn's voice, filled with joy, came from inside, and she ran out. Having not seen Kiran for days, she was like a bee finding nectar, her eyes shining as she ran to his side. Kiran handed her the black pill. "Give your mother 3 of these. Isn't that poison?" Lindsay asked instinctively. She had just spoken when she realized how foolish she sounded. How could it be poison? Kiran had come all this way to save his mother. Without asking, Yvonne turned and went inside. Lindsay followed her in. Only then did everyone realize Kiran had played them. It wasn't poison at all. Thud! Kiran dropped Lloyd on the ground. With a broken leg, Lloyd was sweating profusely, grimacing in pain. However, he still glared at Kiran, his eyes filled with sharp anger. "Come here." Kiran waved at the other bodyguards. Seeing Lloyd on the ground, the bodyguards hesitated to approach. "This is my last warning. Come here, or you'll miss your chance," Kiran said, watching everyone with a cold smile. Lloyd, not resigned to his fate, deliberately tried to incite hatred against Kiran. "Kiran, you kill the innocent. Our master will definitely kill you." Crack! Kiran's foot lifted and stomped down on Lloyd's right leg. Lloyd's right leg was crushed on the spot, deformed. Ah! Lloyd's scream was gut-wrenching, his face contorted in excruciating pain. "I killed your family head's son and he couldn't even touch me," Kiran scoffed, looking around at everyone. "Let alone you dogs!" The crowd listened to Kiran's insults, veins throbbing on their foreheads, clearly enraged. "Wrong," Kiran suddenly said. "What's wrong?" Lloyd asked instinctively despite his pain. "You are worse than dogs," Kiran coldly taunted. "You!" Lloyd grimaced in pain and fury. Dogs at least bark when they hear gunshots. You heard gunfire and stayed silent, worse than dogs. Kiran's taunting voice cut sharply, like a blade piercing Lloyd's heart. Lloyd knew his act had been too transparent. With his skills, pretending not to hear the gunshots was a major blunder. However, he couldn't blame himself. He thought Kiran was already dead. To him, everyone in the Ludwig family was as good as dead, so why bother? With Kiran's unexpected appearance, not only was his cover blown, but he was also facing his own death. His heart filled with resentment and rage as he glared furiously at Kiran. Kiran! Just then, Finn Ludwig came out from inside. Kiran looked at Finn Ludwig. Although middle-aged, Finn maintained a fine appearance and an aura of confidence and authority. At this moment, his gaze towards Kiran was complex and charged with emotion. Finn's eyes also fell on Lloyd. After several hours of ordeal, he realized that without Kiran's intervention, his survival was unlikely. Kiran had just called these men worse than dogs, a sentiment Finn agreed with. If they were dogs, they would have barked at the sound of gunfire, showing some concern. These men did nothing, almost as if they had imprisoned him instead. Anger surged in Finn's eyes as he looked at Lloyd, who was still putting on an act. Master, Kiran has crippled me. I can't protect you anymore, I'm sorry. I couldn't avenge young Master Ludwig. Avenge my ass! Finn ran over and began kicking Lloyd ruthlessly. The plan of playing the victim backfired on Lloyd, who was taken aback by Finn's cold-hearted ferocity. Kiran watched silently. After a fierce beating, Finn stopped, panting heavily, clearly both angry and exhausted. His piercing gaze fixed on Lloyd. Did Park Sung-nam tell you to kill me? Ah? Lloyd was caught off guard by the mention of Park Sung-nam. Kiran's eyes narrowed, focusing intensely on Lloyd. Who is Park Sung-nam? Chapter 788. Lloyd eyed Finn warily. Finn sneered as he surveyed the circle of bodyguards. Don't think for a moment that I'm clueless. You all are spies planted by them to watch me. The bodyguards' faces changed drastically, feeling exposed on the spot. They had always thought Finn was a fool, but now they realized it was actually they who were foolish. Finn pointed at one of the bodyguards. You, Kondo, are from Sunland but changed your name to Norton. Ha! Did you really think your damned Sunland could become heaven? Kondo, who stood about 175 centimeters tall with a stocky build looking more like someone from Dragon's Land, was suddenly singled out. Shocked and stunned, he instinctively stepped back, his gaze wary of Kiran, fearing Kiran's ferocity even more than Finn's. Kneel! Kiran pointed authoritatively to the ground in front of Kondo, commanding forcefully. Damn it! Kondo cursed in anger, but instead of attacking, he turned to run. Pop! A sound like a balloon being pierced emanated from his body. Thud. Kondo's body slammed heavily onto the ground, twitched twice, and then he was dead. The remaining bodyguards' faces turned ashen, filled with fear. Lloyd, already disabled, felt his heart go cold. Finn looked down at Lloyd. Are you going to confess yourself, or should I make you? Just kill me, Lloyd shouted defiantly, knowing full well that his identity had been exposed. Finn, enraged, stared at Lloyd, then looked up at Kiran for guidance. Kiran's lips curved into a smile, his hand already holding a knife. Come on! Kill me! Lloyd almost wished for Kiran to do it, to end it swiftly with one strike. Kiran sneered, ignoring him, and turned to the other bodyguards. Starting now, each one of you take turns stabbing Lloyd, but don't take his life. What? The other bodyguards gasped, faces showing fear. Finn was also surprised by Kiran's instruction. Whoever takes his life will die, Kiran emphasized. The bodyguards trembled intensely, extremely nervous. Kiran pointed at one of the bodyguards. You, record this. Record? The chosen bodyguard exclaimed in disbelief. Start now, who's first? Kiran was done talking. The bodyguards remained motionless, their faces tense and uneasy. They all knew their strengths, and among them, Lloyd was undoubtedly the most skilled in martial arts. Now that Kiran had easily crippled him, they knew that even together they were no match for Kiran. Seeing Kondo's corpse only added to their dread. Nobody coming? Kiran's gaze settled on one of the bodyguards. Terrified, the bodyguard trembled. Before he could utter a word, he saw a flash of silver as a needle pierced his throat. Ah, the other bodyguard screamed in terror, all eyes turning to Kiran. Kiran coldly took out another silver needle ready to kill the next one. I'll do it! Unable to bear the pressure, one shouted and ran forward. Kiran handed the dagger to the bodyguard. Gripping the dagger, the bodyguard advanced towards Lloyd, his eyes swirling with murderous intent. Lloyd looked at the bodyguard. Kelly, you dare lay a hand on me? Swoosh! Kelly's blade already slashed across Lloyd, splattering blood everywhere. The bodyguard responsible for recording closed his eyes in fright but continued filming. Although they were all bodyguards and had killed people in their line of work, they were now terrified when faced with Kiran and the danger. Kelly's action triggered a domino effect, and the others soon started taking turns. Lloyd lay on the ground, pitifully unable to dodge with his legs broken. He tried to protect himself by flailing his arms, only to have his fingers meet the blades and get sliced off. Thus, Lloyd soon became a bloody mess, lying on the ground, barely breathing and nearly at his last gasp. Having completed their grim task, the bodyguards were still trembling with fear and apprehension. Beep, beep. Just then, Lloyd's phone rang. Kiran looked the bodyguard recording the scene. The bodyguard trembled all over, almost kneeling on the spot. "Answer the call, speakerphone?" Kiran commanded. Relieved to just be answering a call, the bodyguard quickly nodded, ran to pick up the phone, and answered it. As soon as the call connected, Park Sung-nam's voice came through. "Lloyd, has Kiran been killed?" Hiss. All the bodyguards on the scene drew a sharp breath, their eyes filled with pity as they looked at the grievous state of Lloyd. Lloyd wanted to speak, but he no longer had the strength to talk. "Park Sung-nam," Finn shouted angrily. "Finn Ludwig?" Park Sung-nam sounded surprised. "Are you Park Sung-nam?" Kiran smiled as he walked over. On the other side of the video call, Park Sung-nam's face filled with anger and astonishment upon seeing Kiran. "Where's Lloyd?" "He's on the ground missing you," Kiran quipped, directing the camera at Lloyd. "Ah?" Seeing Lloyd lying on the ground, covered in blood and barely alive, Park Sung-nam almost retched. "Kiran, how could you harm Lloyd?" "You're mistaken. It wasn't me," Kiran laughed. "Then who was it?" Park Sung-nam demanded angrily. "Finn's bodyguards," Kiran replied. "Finn's bodyguards?" "Yes, I have a video of them in action. You might want to see this," Kiran suggested, playing the footage. As Park Sung-nam watched through the screen, his heart seared with discomfort and pain, and his anger intensified. "Damn it. You all deserve to die for laying hands on Lloyd. They're your partner's bodyguards, bought and paid for by your allies. Your partners killed your Lloyd," Kiran emphasized with a smirk. Boom. The revelation struck everyone present, leaving them utterly hopeless about their future. Even Finn was taken aback by Kiran's strategy, setting their enemies against each other in a dog-eat-dog scenario. Admiration was evident in his eyes. "Ah." Lying on the ground, Lloyd heard these words and let out an anguished cry, his body writhing in a final fit of rage. "Lloyd is dying. Park Sung-nam, watch closely." Kiran directed the phone's camera back to Lloyd. Park Sung-nam's gaze met Lloyd's eyes, which were bulging with blood and filled with an unmistakable resentment. "Ah." With a final loud cry, Lloyd's body convulsed, his head tilted to the side, and he breathed his last. His eyes, however, remained open, reflecting his unresolved anger and profound resentment. "Lloyd Mo, do you miss Park Sung-nam?" Kiran called out loudly. Lloyd's eyes, seemingly responsive, moved slightly and then closed. "Arr." A scream came from the other side as Park Sung-nam reacted, followed by the sound of a phone hitting the ground. Then came the tone of the call disconnecting. The bodyguards at the scene were all startled, their anxiety palpable. Kiran turned his gaze towards them, his lips curling into a chilling smile. Chapter 789. The bodyguards backed away as if they had seen a demon, fear in their eyes as they worried Kiran York would kill them. "Each of you will now call your backers. If the call goes through, you'll live. If not." Kiran glanced at Lloyd Mo's corpse on the ground, leaving the rest unsaid. The bodyguards felt a buzz in their heads, as if death itself had its sights on them. Even Finn Ludwig was shaken by Kiran's cold-bloodedness. He realized that he could also be killed if he continued to oppose Kiran. He felt a chill and looked at the bodyguards with sympathy. The bodyguards exchanged glances, none speaking, clearly thinking about what to do. Kiran York's smile grew colder as he fixed his gaze on them. "Not calling?" His gaze landed on one bodyguard. The bodyguard felt as if he were being locked onto by a predator and gasped in horror. He quickly turned to a cry of pain as Kiran had already pierced his throat with a silver needle. Finn's heart felt like it had been struck by ocean waves. This Kiran was terrifying. "Who's next?" Kiran's gaze settled on another bodyguard. "I'll call." The bodyguard frantically pulled out his phone and dialed. The call connected and a voice speaking in a foreign language babbled on. Kiran couldn't understand, but he could see the bodyguard was nervous, his tone pleading. Impatient, Kiran walked over, snatched the phone from the bodyguard, and said to the person on the other end, "10 billion to buy these people's lives." "Dream on." The person didn't know it was Kiran and angrily cursed. "Crack." The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out as Kiran snapped the bodyguard's neck. "Your master wants you dead. Oh my gig God!" The other bodyguards were utterly terrified of Kiran's cruelty. On the other end, the person was also stunned, not expecting Kiran to be so ruthless. "Who are you?" "Kiran York." "Hiss!" The other person gasped, clearly frightened. "Anyone who is his subordinate, keep talking. If you don't pay up, you'll leave your life behind." Kiran's gaze was cold and indifferent as he looked at the others. The eyes of the people present were filled with fear. "Els, please save us!" 7 or 8 bodyguards shouted at the man on the other end of the phone. Els heard their pleas and was furious. "You cowards! Afraid to die, huh?" "Aye. We are afraid to die. Please save you us." Thud, thud. All of them kneeled before Kiran, shouting to Els on the other end. Clearly, they were terrified. "Kneeling and begging?" Kiran asked coldly. "Please spare us," the bodyguards shouted at Kiran. Els, hearing this, felt his head buzzing. He realized that these bodyguards knew some secrets, and if they leaked, it would be trouble. He took a deep breath and said to Kiran, "I'll give you 10 billion. Let them go." "The price has gone up," Kiran sneered. "The price has gone up." Els was ready to curse. "Yes, it's 50 billion now. Damn it," Els cursed. "You don't want to die. Exchange information for your lives." Kiran ignored Els and said to the people before him, "I have information," one of the bodyguards quickly blurted out. "Shut up!" "I'll pay," Els shouted. The bodyguard fell silent. "Then hurry up." "My account is." Kiran rattled off his account number. "Kiran, I'll give you the money, but how can I trust you won't use their lives to blackmail us for information again?" Els asked calmly. "Don't worry, I'm not that petty," Kiran replied coolly. "You really won't?" "I won't." "Okay, I'll transfer the money now," Els said, hanging up. Kiran had the others start making calls. Each called their backers and explained the situation, even revealing ALS's involvement to ensure their backers would pay. Soon, Kiran received 250 billion. Seeing the money in his bank account, Kiran smiled coldly. He hadn't demanded the money for the sake of wealth, but to trace where the money came from, hoping to find the source and uproot these people. As for the secrets these bodyguards knew, he wasn't interested. He turned to the pleading bodyguards. "Get lost." "Thank you. Thank you." The bodyguards felt as if they had been pardoned and quickly stood up to run. "Clean up these bodies first," Kiran said, pointing at Lloyd Moe and the others. "Got it." The bodyguards quickly tidied up, then fled. The Ludwig family villa soon fell silent, deathly quiet. Kiran's tactic had eradicated the Ludwig family's hidden threats. Moreover, his clever demand for money had exposed other forces. When Kanta Yasuda and the others heard about it, they were enraged, all blaming Park Sungnam for failing to kill Kiran. Kanta especially looked down on Park Sungnam. Park Sungnam in turn accused their men of killing Lloyd Moe. The situation quickly devolved into a dog-eat-dog affair until Davis intervened. Park Sungnam agreed to go to Dragonsland and kill Kiran, the Ludwig residents. "Kiran, I'm sorry for what we did to your family," Finn apologized, breaking the silence. "If you want to apologize, go to my parents' graves. I'm only helping your daughters save their mother," Kiran replied calmly. Not killing Finn was already a significant gesture of tolerance, but it didn't mean he forgave Finn for his betrayal. Finn looked embarrassed but nodded to Kiran. "Till go." Kiran ignored him and turned to enter the villa. Inside the villa, Lindsay, Ludwig, and Yvonne Quinn were taking care of Maxine Daines. Maxine's face was as pale as paper. If it weren't for Yvonne's goo and Kiran's medicine, she would have died. "Kiran, please save my mother quickly." Lindsay wiped away her tears and pleaded. Finn's eyes were also filled with a plea. Kiran came over, glanced at the wound, and said to Finn, "They didn't intend to kill her." Finn and the others were stunned, all looking at Kiran. First, if they wanted to kill her, they could have gone for a headshot. Finn and the 2 women nodded in realization. Second, even if they wanted to kill her this way, they could have directly hit her heart. They missed on purpose. The 3 looked surprised. Third, they intended for her to be injured deliberately, Kiran said, looking in the direction of the gunshot. Deliberately? The 3 couldn't help but exclaim. It was deliberate. Kiran nodded firmly. He didn't explain further and began treating Maxine. Chapter 790. Why do you think they deliberately hurt my mother? Lindsay Ludwig asked as Kiran York finished treating Maxine Daines and sat outside the villa. Finn Ludwig knew Kiran still harbored resentment toward him, so he stayed behind to take care of his wife, leaving his 2 daughters with Kiran outside. Kiran looked at Lindsay. "It's possible they did it to protect your family." "Protect?" Lindsay asked, confused, but it seemed plausible when she recalled Kiran's analysis of the assassination attempt. "It's just a guess, not certain," Kiran said. "I think they wanted to lure you here." Yvonne Quinn looked at Kiran. Kiran glanced at Yvonne and smiled. Her love spell had indeed made her privy to his thoughts. In fact, Kiran also believed that they had intentionally lured him to Dragon City. Suddenly remembering the money, he threw a bank card to Lindsay. Lindsay was momentarily startled but quickly took the card. "Are you planning to submit this card?" Kiran shot her a look. "There are 5 lots of 50 billion inside. It's from the forces behind this. Go find out where the money came from." Lindsay looked excited as she heard this. She wanted to joke about agreeing to be his mistress, but with her sister there, she refrained and said, "Got it." She took the bank card and went to investigate. Only Kiran and Yvonne remained. "Miss me?" Yvonne leaned closer to Kiran. "No," Kiran replied truthfully. "You're so annoying." Yvonne pouted and pinched Kiran's arm. In fact, through the love spell, Yvonne knew Kiran hadn't thought of her, which made her feel quite upset, so she deliberately asked, "I have so many things to do every day. How do I have time for all this romantic nonsense?" Kiran said helplessly. "I think it's because you have Snow Xander and you're satisfied," Yvonne teased. "When will you reveal you're not actually a Ludwig?" Kiran asked. "After this upheaval, revealing the truth is of little significance now." Yvonne playfully glanced at Kiran. Kiran shook his head. "Your identity and the real whereabouts of the second Ludwig miss still need to be clarified. This is my identity. Even if I'm the daughter of your mortal enemy, you can't do anything to me." Yvonne replied boldly. "That's true. Then just love me," Yvonne said with a smile. "It would be better to find a way to lift the love spell," Kiran replied with a bitter smile. "What's so great about Snow Xander?" Yvonne asked, frustrated and unconvinced. "At least she doesn't have to wear a parka, right?" "What do you mean by that? Want me to strip down and show you?" Yvonne challenged. Kiran was about to respond when Lindsay came running back. "Kiran, I found out that one of the transactions came from the Carter family in Dragon City." "Carter family?" Kiran and Yvonne both exclaimed. The two immediately thought of Miles Carter, who had been killed in Fox City. "Yes, the Carter family transferred the money from a foreign country to your account." "Ha!" Kiran chuckled coldly, his face turning icy. "The Carter family deserves to die." "What do we do?" Lindsay asked urgently. "Find me someone from the Carter family." "I need an outlet for my anger," Kiran said indifferently. "Joshua Carter is at the Snow Butterfly Ballroom. Do you want to go there?" Lindsay asked. "Joshua?" Kiran recalled the playboy who had tried to be the hero for Serena Zimmerman. "Yes, you met in Bayville," Lindsay reminded him. "I'm going to the Snow Butterfly Ballroom right now." Kiran stood up, ready to leave. "I'll go with you." Yvonne quickly stood up. "Go ahead." Lindsay handed Kiran the keys to a Lamborghini. "Take my car." Kiran didn't refuse and left the Ludwig villa with Yvonne, heading to the Snow Butterfly Ballroom. Inside the Snow Butterfly Ballroom, Joshua Carter, wearing a suit, sat in the corner. 6 women were around him, all with seductive bodies and revealing outfits. The women were all flirting with Joshua, hoping he would take them to bed immediately. One woman in a mini skirt even used her long, slender legs to rub against Joshua's legs, seducing him without reservation. Joshua seemed unaffected by their temptations, calmly drinking while gazing toward the dance floor, a complicated expression on his face. "Mr. Carter, let me toast you," said a woman in a red dress, lightly flicking her black hair to reveal a large expanse of white skin, trying to attract Joshua's attention. Splash! Joshua raised his hand and poured half a glass of wine on the woman's chest. "Ah." The woman uttered a soft cry, initially stunned, but she soon composed herself. Not at all angry, she giggled. "Mr. Carter, do you like the wet look?" "I'll join in." Another woman picked up her glass and poured wine on her chest, letting it flow down. Although Joshua wasn't in a good mood, his eyes lit up slightly when he saw the wine flowing down. "Mr. Carter, let's drink, shall we?" The woman in red leaned closer, inviting Joshua to lick the wine off her chest. "Behave yourselves. I'm not in a good mood today," Joshua said. The women's faces showed disappointment when they realized Joshua was uninterested in their seduction. They exchanged glances but said nothing. Joshua's mind remained fixated on Serena Zimmerman's image. After their encounter in Bayville, he wanted to return to find Serena, but family matters had kept him in Dragon City, leaving him to pine away in longing. Today, he had brought several women, hoping to find some excitement to forget about Serena. The wet-look tease was beautiful and enjoyable, but for a playboy like Joshua, it soon became meaningless and didn't move him. Feeling helpless and depressed, Joshua suddenly saw Yvonne Quinn walk in. Kiran was parking the car, so they didn't enter together. It was the hottest time of summer, a season when women dressed revealingly and provocatively. Some women wished they could go out without clothes to show off their beauty and passion. Yvonne was the opposite, fully dressed in a parka. Her appearance stood out, leaving people in awe. Yvonne's pale, beautiful face was full of allure, and no man could resist her. Joshua had already stood up.